Hello, everyone. Myself, Dr. Veena, Associate Professor, Department of ISC, Dayanand Sagar Academy of Technology and Management, Bangalore. Welcome to the lecture video on nested classes and lab program 8 of object-oriented programming with Java, subject code BCS306A for third semester under VTU 2022 scheme. So let us see the problem statement, which is lab program 8 in the syllabus. Lab program 8 states something like this. Develop a Java program to create an outer class with a function display. Create another class inside the outer class named inner with a function called display and call the two functions in the main class. So before we start writing a Java program for the concept that is outer and inner classes or nested classes, just let us see the little bit concepts of the nested classes and inner classes, and then we'll write the program in Java. So what do you mean by inner and nested classes? We all know that when we declare a class or when we create a class, it basically contains the members in it. And the members are either the variables, which can be either the class variables or instance variables, and the methods into it. And it can also contain the constructors into it. So till now, whatever the programs we have executed, we have seen that one single class is enclosing only the class members within it. It's an individual or independent class we can talk about. But what do you mean by inner and nested classes? We'll just have a brief on it. So Java basically allows to define a class within another class, and such a class is called as nested class. So when we define one class within another, then the concept of nesting or then the concept of nested class comes into picture. So how basically it works? What is the syntax for the same? How does the nested classes and inner classes look is represented in this particular statements. Suppose I create a class named outer class, and before closing the outer class, if I define one more class within the same class, then those classes are called as inner or nested classes within it. So here you can see we have created one class named outer class, and inside that class we are trying to create one more class called as inner class. So there comes the concept of nested classes and inner classes. So what do you mean by nested class after seeing? We'll just see what are the different types of nested classes. There are two types of nested classes. One are called as static class and the one is non-static class. Static class is basically called as static nested classes. So whenever we define one class within another with a prefix as a static keyword, those classes are called as static nested classes. And what these static nested classes basically deals with. The members of this enclosing class do not have access to other members of the enclosing class. Do not have the access to the other members. That means what? They can have access only to the static members of the enclosing class. But the other non-static members cannot be accessed in this static class, or those are called as static nested classes. And the other type of nested class, we have non-static class, where we say that the class is not defined with a keyword static as a prefix, and those non-static classes comes under the category of inner classes. So suppose I define one class within another class without a static keyword, that class will be called as inner class. And what inner class basically does is it has the access to other members of the enclosing class, even if they are private in nature. So even the private members of the outer class are accessible in inner class. So these are the basically two different types of nested classes with a keyword that is static and non-static. If you make use of defining a class using static keyword, you say it becomes a static nested class. And if you create a class or define a class without a static keyword into it, you would simply call it as an inner class. So just a small example to explain you what are inner classes, what are outer classes, and what are nested classes. I've just written one example for you where we have created a class named outer class. So we know there is a class named as outer class. Inside this outer class, we have created one more class named inner class. So as this class is not having a prefix that is static keyword, you say this class is nothing but inner class. And this inner class is having the body of class, and that body of a class contains one single method definition with the name show. And what this show method is doing is it is going to call two various methods, that is method 1 and method 2. And we have just closed class inner class. So make a note here. I have not closed the outer class yet. I have just closed the inner class. So we have created one more class named as nested class within outer class. And that class as a nested class is having a prefix now static class. And the same class, that is the same method show, is also been defined in the nested class. And this show method is also calling two various methods, that is method 1 and method 2. And then we have just closed the nested class. So here you can see one inner class we have created, which has the member called as show as a method, which is going to call two various methods, method 1 and method 2. We have created one static nested class, which also has a show method, and that show method is also calling two various methods, method 1 and method 2. Still, the outer class is not yet closed. So here you can say in the same outer class, we have created one method, that is method 1, public static void method 1. That means method 1 is a method which is of type static. And we have also one more method we have defined with method 2. So some statements have been written in suppose method 1 and method 2. And then we have just closed this particular class. So what it will do? So this entire scenario, if you just summarize with the concepts of inner class and nested class, show method of inner class is calling method 1 and method 2. And nested class show is also calling method 1 and method 2. And out of method 1 and method 2, you have method 1 is of type static and method 2 is non-static. So how it works? So if you talk about this, the show method of inner class, method 1 calling and method 2 calling will execute successfully. That means calling the methods from the outer enclosing class in the inner class is definitely possible. That means both the statement calling statements are correct. As far as the nested class is concerned, you can say that method 1 can be called. That is correct because class is of type static and it is trying to call a method 1, and method 1 is also of type static. As the method 1 is also of type static, you can access the member, that is static member, within the static nested class. But it is also trying to call method 2, and method 2 is non-static in nature here. So if you just see this statement, that is method 2 is not going to work. It is going to throw an error because method 2 is of type non-static and we are trying to call within a method which is in a static nested class, and static nested class can have the access to only the static members, not the non-static members. But when we talk about inner classes, it has the access for everything, whether it is a static, non-static, private, all the members can be accessed within the inner class. So this is basically the concept of outer classes, inner classes, and nested classes. Now suppose you have created one outer class here, we have created one inner class within it, you have created static nested class also within it. So how do you call or how do you create the objects of these classes? So if you want to create an object of outer class, it's very simple. You can just say outer class name followed by object is equal to new outer class constructor. But suppose you want to create an object of inner class and you want to create an object of nested class, there is a slight change in the syntax. Let us see. And before seeing the syntax of those nested classes and inner classes, we also should know what are the advantages of using nested class. So whenever we nest or whenever we define one class within another, basically it increases encapsulation. Also, it constitutes to more readable and maintainable code. That's why we should go for nested classes. So coming back to the syntax of how to create the object of static nested class and inner class, it goes something like this. So if you want to create an object of static nested class, how do you create is you have to make use of an outer class name dot static nested class name followed by the object name is equal to new is an operator which will create an object outer class name dot static nested class name as a constructor. So it's as simple as that. As you create the object of outer class, you will also create the object of static nested class with outer class name followed by dot and followed by static nested class. But when you want to create an object of inner class, there is a slight change. Remember, whenever you want to create an object of inner class, the outer class object must exist. If you don't have the object of outer class, you will not be able to create an object of inner class. So how do you create basically the object of inner class is outer class name dot inner class name, the object equal to outer object. So what is this outer object is? This is the object of outer class dot new inner class name. So this is how the syntax of inner class object to be created. So for this, in this particular syntax, if you see, I have just written outer object. So what outer object is? Outer object is nothing but it is the object of outer class, and that object of outer class should be created first. So how you can create the object of the outer class is simply like this. Outer class name, outer object equal to new outer class name. So to summarize how to create the object of static nested class and inner classes, you should remember that for creating object of inner class, first create an object of outer class and then just make use of that outer object to create an object for the inner class. So 2 steps to go ahead with creating object of inner class. But as far as static nested classes are concerned, you can create the object of static nested class just with a dot operator that is having the prefix as the outer class name followed by the nested static nested class name. This is how you should create the object of static nested class and inner classes. Coming to the program, what program statement basically says is you have to create, you have to develop a Java program which creates one outer class which contains a display method. Then you have to create an inner class which also should contain display method, and we should demonstrate that particular program. So we are trying to create a class named outer. Inside this outer class, it says or it states that you have to create a method or you have to define a method named display. And we are just adding one statement here. I want to display. Whenever the object of outer class is used to invoke a method display, it should be able to display a message as outer class display method. So this is what the statement written within display. Now, before, without exiting or without terminating or without having the closing bracket of outer class, we are trying to create one more class within it. And the class name is created without a static keyword, so it becomes inner class. In this inner class, we are trying to define the same method that is display. And the definition of the display here is it will display inner class display method. And that is the end of inner class. So you have one outer class created. Within that outer class, you have created one more inner class. Inner class and outer class both have display methods in which the outer class display method says it should display a message as outer class display method, and inner class object should display inner class display method. I have also added the nested class that is of type static within this class. So static class with the name nested. This also contains the method display. And what the method display does in nested class is it displays static nested class display. I'm closing display method. I'm closing the static class. And I am closing the outer class also. So here on the left-hand side, you can see that the entire class hierarchy has been created. One outer class. Inside that outer class, you have one inner class and you have one static nested class. And all these classes have the method display with the respective description or definition. Outer class display method, inner class display method, and static nested class display method should be displayed based on the object we are using to invoke the respective method. Now we are creating one class named main, which contains public static void main. We will try to create the objects of this outer, inner, and nested classes, and then we'll demonstrate it. So how will you create the object of inner class? For creating an object of inner class, it is must that you should create an object of outer class. So what we did, outer class object you have created. So outer is the name of a class, outer object, outer obj is the name of an object which is created here. Then we are using outer object.display, which should be able to call the display method of outer class. We are trying to create an object of inner class. How to create an object of inner class is outer.inner. Outer is the name of outer class. Inner is the name of inner class. Inner obj is the object name equal to what is the name of outer object is outer obj dot new, and the name of the method is inner. And that is going to create an inner class object. Inner obj.display, which is going to call the display method of inner class. Then we are creating an object of nested class. How do you create an object of nested classes? Outer class name dot static nested class name, static nested object, and then new equal to new outer class name dot nested class name. And we are calling the display method for the nested object also. And that is what the close of the class also we have written. So this is a simple program which has been written, and this program we can execute and check whether the output or what will be the output of this program. So I'll just take you to IntelliJ IDE. So this is what the IntelliJ IDE, I have already copied this program. Here you can see I have created a class named outer, which contains a display method. We have created one class named inner within that outer class with the display method, one static nested class with the display method. And in the main class, in the public static void main method, we have created an outer class object called the display method. We have created the inner class object, we have called the display method. And we have created the static nested class object, and we have called the display method. So if you just run this program, we'll see what will be the output. You can see here, the output is displayed. Outer class display method, then inner class display method, and then static nested class display method. So first statement output has come due to outer class object. The second statement has displayed due to inner class object. And the third statement is displayed due to static nested class object. So this is how the program can be written in case you want to nest or you want to define one class within another, and you can demonstrate that. So here only one thing you have to remember, without closing the definition of the outer class, you should start writing the inner classes and static nested classes with keyword either static or no keyword to be given for inner classes. And then whenever you want to call the methods from those inner classes and static nested classes, the respective syntax should be used and object should be created. And once the object is created, you will be able to call those methods from anywhere. So this is how the program number 8 works. I hope all of you understood this program and learned it. Thank you so much. In the next video, we will see what is exception handling and the lab program number 9. Thank you all. Thank you.